Texas soldiers are at risk of being fired if they don't get the COVID vaccine. A Dallas area school district is promoting queer sex ed to children. Plus, Texas is lagging behind when it comes to protecting religious freedom. I'm Brandon Waltons. This is the headline. In another big story from this week, as school districts across the state come under fire for indoctrinating students with transgender theory and divisive racial policies, Louisville ISD, it's located near Dallas, they're promoting queer sex ed to children. Last week, Libs of TikTok, a Twitter account that routinely exposes the sexualization and indoctrination of children, shared screenshots from Louisville ISD's counseling services page, which included links to LGBT organizations PFLAG and Youth First Texas. Now, Youth First Texas is an organization that focuses on LGBTQIA teens and the issues they face at home, school, and in the community. Those are their words. The group offers a weekly queer identity night where children ages 12 to 18 meet with, quote, transgender adult mentors. The organization also hosts a monthly queer sex ed group over Zoom. Not only that, students also have access to a Q Chat space, which is a chat-based live discussion group online for individuals 13 to 19. Not only does the chat website feature an array of highly sexualized content, but it also features a quick escape bar on every page, which, if clicked, switches the screen to the Google homepage so that teens can hide their participation in the group from their parents. As parents across the state push back against radical gender theory in their children's schools, Louisville ISD will have to decide if they will continue promoting LGBT organizations to students. And no matter where you live in Texas, you might want to find out what your local schools are teaching. You might remember last year, President Joe Biden, the Biden administration, put a vaccine mandate on the military. At the time, there were big questions about what that would mean for soldiers in Texas, specifically in the Texas National Guard. Governor Greg Abbott promised that soldiers wouldn't be fired, and yet a new investigation shows that thousands of soldiers could potentially lose their jobs still because of this vaccine mandate. Here to talk about that, we have Robert Montoya, our investigative reporter. Robert, this is a story that was on a lot of people's mind, I'd say, last year, and sort of has died down, and yet your investigation shows that, no, this is just as prevalent a problem as ever. It's just that the establishment media is not focusing on it.
That's correct. So in June, and enlisting the Texas National Guard by the name of Crystal Desmarais, she came forward to us and said that she had been threatened with dishonorable discharge when she went for basic combat training in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, she says, because she's unvaccinated, which she refuses to get vaccinated because it violates her Roman Catholic faith. Mm-hmm. After her, two more came forward to us. Ammon Blair, a 22-year military veteran who was in the Texas National Guard, and Sergeant Daniel Peters, who still is. Now, Blair says he was thrown out of the Texas National Guard because he wouldn't vaccinate. Mm-hmm. Sergeant Daniel Peters also refuses to vaccinate, but just like Desmarais, they're both in a weird holding pattern waiting to see what their fate's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because certainly, this vaccine mandate came out and, we're on YouTube. So, I know a lot of people might not want to get the vaccine for one reason or another. I don't know why, right? But you certainly had a large number of people. How many people are we now looking at that could potentially be out of a job?
So in the course of our investigation, we went to the Texas Military Department in July and asked them, how many soldiers potentially are unvaccinated and probably are at risk being thrown out. The numbers they gave back to us, we were able to calculate. Mm-hmm. At that time, we were looking at more than 2,600 soldiers in the Texas military were at risk of being thrown out for being unvaccinated. On September 14th, we asked for an update on these numbers. We've still not yet been provided an update on that. So that's all we know is the numbers from July.
Mm-hmm. And the way this works, right? Because the governor did come out and say, look, we're not going to fire soldiers essentially because they don't comply with this vaccine mandate. And yet the actual way this seems to be working has a lot to do with sort of a de facto firing because of not being able to fulfill training requirements.
Correct. So this is the way it seems to be going on. As we know, Governor Greg Abbott did issue an executive order saying, no vaccine mandates in the Texas military. In our conversations with Blair, Demaray, and Sergeant Peters, this seems to be how it's working. You are not allowed to go to drill if you're in the Texas National Guard, if you're unvaccinated. Now, drill is paid for by federal taxpayers. So if you go to drill, you don't get paid. And if you don't show up for X amount of drills, then you get canned. So it seems like technically the way the federal government's going about this is you're getting fired for actually not drilling as opposed to being unvaccinated.
Well, and President Biden, right? It was just a couple of weeks ago, President Biden said that the pandemic was over, and yet we haven't seen a shift yet on this policy. The question then is, what, if anything, can the state do to fight back against this? Yeah,
so, Texas, as well as some other organizations, other soldiers, they have filed lawsuits to fight the mandate. And there have been some, initially positive rulings we've been getting, but the way the courts work, this could take years before there's a resolution.
Right.
So we've got some suggestions from both Blair and Sergeant Peters, and this is what they've suggested. Sergeant Peters suggested one thing that can be done is the state of Texas puts all of her military forces on state active duty, meaning state taxpayers shoulder the burden for paying for them. And Blair suggested something similar. He said we should follow what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis did, which is if you're a soldier who's unvaccinated, you can move from the Texas National Guard to the Texas State Guard, which does not answer to President Biden at all. There's no federal involvement with them. They answer to Governor Greg Abbott alone. Both options would require state taxpayers to shoulder more of the burden. It would not protect these soldiers from losing federal pensions or federal benefits. But it is something that can be done.
Excellent. Like I said, a lot of the establishment media has not been paying attention to this story in a while. It's surprising to see it's still such an issue. It'd be interesting to see if the Biden administration is forced to do something or fold on this.
Well, one thing we do know is that when we went to the National Guard Bureau, because Mr. Blair, he gave us a document that showed that soldiers are supposed to start getting, thrown out October 1st. September 14th, we asked the National Guard Bureau, can you authenticate this document? Is this real or not? It wasn't until this week, hours after our article reported on this, that they finally came back and said, we confirm its authenticity, but there are certain parts that have not been enforced yet, and the Secretary of the Army is waiting to make a decision on what's called Phase 2. So it seems to be internally, there's some hedging around, especially since, as you know, it's been widely reported, the military is having trouble with recruitment.
Well, this certainly doesn't help. So it'd be interesting to see how this ends. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.
Well, a new report shows that Texas may be lagging behind other states when it comes to protecting religious freedom. Here to talk about that report, we have Trey Dimsdale, the executive director of the Center for Religion, Culture, and Democracy with First Liberty. Thank you so much, Trey, for joining us. And explain real quick what this report is. Like, what did the report look at?
Well, the index as it's constructed was released a couple of weeks ago is actually a snapshot of the state level laws as of December 31st of last year that provide protection in discrete areas for free exercise of religion. It's different from the types of issues that will usually show up in the news that are related to the federal context. The federal context provides sort of a minimal level of protection that states have to provide. So states can provide more, but they can't provide less than what the federal context provides. And so this index actually ranks the states by how well they are protecting religious freedom beyond that minimal level that's provided by the federal context.
And this report, the Religious Liberty in the States report, looked at 11 safeguards, and out of that ranking, Texas ranked 25th. What were the reasons that Texas got held back?
Yeah, so there are good things. There's a lot of good things in the Texas report. Texas does have, a RFRA. It does provide some protections for healthcare workers that have religious objections to the things that they're involved in, but not all. So I think that there are a handful of things that are missing from the law in the state law in Texas that could actually provide more freedom, more political context for free exercise of religion for Texas citizens.
Yes, and well, yes, certainly some work left to do, I'd say, in making sure we secure religious freedom. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everybody watching. If you go ahead, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we're live here at TexasScorecard.com. For right now, thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.
You made it to the end of this video. You're probably 1 in a million. But since you're here, make sure you go to TexasScorecard.com to find more journalism and commentary, all things pertaining to Texas. Make sure you also like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hit the bell. That way you can be notified when new videos come out. Thanks.